You wash your hands, they're clean, then you dry them, and something disgusting happens. Most people have no idea they're actually undoing their hand washing. After 14 years of running a commercial cleaning company, I decided to test exactly how much bacteria these dryers blow back onto your skin with petri dishes. What grew after 72 hours reveals the biggest maintenance gap I see in facilities today. The kind that turns a freshly cleaned washroom into a hidden source of contamination. Let's look at the plates. The question we are trying to answer is this: are hand dryers making your hands cleaner or dirtier after you wash them? To find out, we need a proper scientific protocol, not just random swaps. Because here is what I realized when setting this up. Most people testing this miss the most important control sample. So here is what we are really testing. My hands before washing. Just normal dirty hands, daily use. This is our baseline. The highest bacteria count we expect to see. Test 2. Hands after washing with soap for 20 seconds, but not dried. Just shaken to remove excess water. This is a control most people skip, and it's also the one that causes the most confusion if you don't explain it properly. We need to understand what happens after washing before we talk about drying methods. If we jump straight from dirty hands to dried hands, we can't separate what the washing removed from what the drying step changes. This test has an important limitation, and that is deliberate. Hands that are wet or only partly dried don't behave like dry hands. Moisture makes it more easier for bacteria to move from the skin onto surfaces. This test doesn't tell us how many bacteria are left on the hands. It tells us how easily bacteria can be transferred when hands aren't properly dried. Because moisture levels are hard to keep consistent. This result isn't suitable for a reference baseline. We include it to show why incomplete drying gives misleading results and why drying methods matter. Drying isn't just about removing water. The way hands are dried can physically remove bacteria, leave it behind, or move it somewhere else entirely. Test 3. Hands washed the same way, then dried with a clean paper towel. For the next test, the hand washing is exactly the same, the only difference is drying method. Hands are dried with a clean paper towel, which represents the best practice in a real working washroom. It is not sterile, not perfect, but it's realistically the cleanest outcome most people can achieve. Test 4. Hands washed, then dried with the standard warm air hand dryer for a full 20-second cycle. Then onto the agar. Hands washed, then dried with the jet dryer for a full 10 to 15 second cycle. Then onto the agar. Before we go any further, I'm curious, what do you personally reach for in a public washroom? Paper towels or a dryer? Now, this is only half the test. We also need to know what is in the air coming out of those dryers. Washroom ambient air control. I am waving this petri dish in the air for 2 minutes to collect any airborne bacteria. This measures the background microbial load. What's already floating around in the washroom air before anyone even uses a dryer. Test 7. Air stream from the standard dryer. I'm holding an agar plate directly in the output airflow, facing the stream, running the dryer for a full 20-second cycle. This captures whatever bacteria the dryer is sucking in from the washroom air, plus anything growing inside the unit itself and then blowing out. Test 8. Dispersal from standard dryer. Now, I am placing an agar plate 1 meter away from the dryer on a count, running the dryer for a full cycle. This measures how far the air is being dispersed, what is being deposited on nearby surfaces. Test 9. Air stream from the jet dryer. Same thing, plate held directly in the air blade 10 to 15 seconds. And test 10. Dispersal from jet dryer. Plate 1 meter away, full cycle. So, that's 10 tests total. All using fresh, sterile petri dishes, all incubated for the same time, same temperature, all using the same soap, same washing technique, same everything. Now, we wait for 72 hours. All these plates go into an incubator at 37 degrees Celsius, that is body temperature. Perfect conditions for human-associated bacteria to grow for 72 hours. And before you think this is just one random experiment, wait till you see what the actual published science says about it. I have spent hours and hours digging into peer-reviewed data, and what the researchers found proves this isn't just a fluke. It is a systematic hygiene failure. Right, 72 hours later. I knew there would be bacteria, but I didn't expect the plates to look like this. Let's start with test 1. Unwashed hands. Over 250 bacterial colonies. Different types. Staphylococcus species, Bacillus species. Different colors. That is normal everyday hand bacteria. Test 2. Hands shaken dry. Around 300 colonies. Staphylococcus, Bacillus and some other bacteria. This number looks high because the hands were still a bit wet. Wet or damp hands pass bacteria onto the plate much more easily than dry hands. So this result isn't showing how dirty the hands were, it's showing how easily bacteria can be transferred when hands aren't properly dried. Shaking wet hands can also pick up bacteria from the air, which can push the number up even more. We can still see that the washing worked. Next, test 3. Paper towel dried. 115 colonies. Staphylococcus species, some gram-negative bacteria. So fewer colonies, the mechanical action of the paper towel removed bacteria. This is our cleanest result. Now, before anyone panics, let's be clear about something important. There will always be some bacteria, even on paper towel sample, even on properly washed hands. Paper towels aren't sterile. Your hands aren't sterile. And that is perfectly normal. Bacteria have been around for billions of years, long before we were here. They're everywhere, on every surface, in the air, on your skin. And most of them are completely harmless. Some are even beneficial. The bacterial load on properly washed hands, dried with a clean paper towel or a properly maintained hand dryer, will never be zero, but it will be a safe normal amount of bacteria. So, this video isn't about fear, it's about awareness of how different hand drying options affect hygiene in real world settings. This isn't about eliminating all bacteria, that's impossible and even, to be honest, unnecessary. This is actually about awareness and maintenance, because poorly maintained hand dryers can make things worse. They can take a safe normal bacterial load and increase it to a level that are unhygienic. That's the difference. Now let's look at test 4. Bloody hell, look at that! 300 colonies of Staphylococcus species, Bacillus species and some gram-negative bacteria. More colonies than the paper towel sample. More types of bacteria than the washed but not dried shaken sample. The dryer actually added bacteria back onto my clean hands. Test 5. Jet dryer. 300 colonies, again Staphylococcus species and many gram-negative bacteria. The glossy, shiny and liquid ones. More than the paper towel. So, even with HEPA filtration, bacteria is being added back onto freshly washed hands. Your hands aren't dirty again, but it's like taking 2 steps forward and 1 giant leap back. You're literally blowing away half the progress you just made at the sink. Let's look at what is in the air. With test 6, washroom ambient air, no bacteria colonies. That was a surprise, to be honest. Washrooms have some bacteria in the air. Test 7, air stream from standard dryer, 20 seconds. Over 100 colonies, Staphylococcus species, Bacillus species and gram-negative bacteria. Significantly more colonies than the ambient air. Different types, the dryer is concentrating bacteria and blowing it out. Test 8. Dispersal from standard dryer 1 meter away. A couple of colonies. There weren't many bacteria in the air to begin with, so these were most likely blown across the room from the hand dryer. Test 9. Air stream from jet dryer 10-15 seconds. 60 colonies, Staphylococcus species predominantly. The orange one in the middle is a gram-negative bacteria. In total, there are fewer colonies than the standard dryer airstream. HEPA filtration is working, but still not zero. And lastly, test 10. Dispersal from the jet dryer from 1 meter away. 1 meter from the jet dryer, we didn't pick up any colony. That doesn't mean jet dryers don't disperse bacteria. Study shows they can to the high velocity air. In this setup, the petri dish was level with the top of the hand dryer and dispersal may be happening lower down. It doesn't mean though that jet dryers don't disperse bacteria. Study shows they can due to the high velocity air. This isn't a lab controlled study, it's a real world demonstration and results depends heavily on where and how you sample. So, what does all this tell us? Hand dryers are actually adding bacteria back onto clean hands. even expensive ones with HEPA filters. This is a massive blind spot for all of us. It's hiding in plain sight every single day, but because the risk is invisible, it almost never makes it onto the maintenance schedule or even a basic cleaning. The standard warm air dryer is pulling in contaminated washroom air and blowing it onto your hands with very little filtration. The jet dryer filters the air better, but the high velocity mechanically strips bacteria and could disperse it even further across the room. Paper towels, they removed bacteria, they didn't blow anything around. My results were shocking, but I am just one guy. Wait until you see what the peer-reviewed science found, because it reveals a hidden source of bacteria inside the machines that I didn't even test for. Scientists have been studying this for years, multiple independent studies, and the findings are consistent. After washing hands properly, bacterial counts drop. That's established. But after drying with a standard warm air dryer, studies found bacterial counts increases by average of 194% on finger pads and 254% on the palms. It's likely washing your hands properly, then drying them with a towel that's already been used to clean the bathroom floor. Let me be clear what that means. It doesn't mean your hands are dirtier than before you wash them. They are probably not. Don't worry, the washing still works. But it's the dryer that isn't doing a significant portion of the good work. Even jet air dryers, the expensive ones, showed an average increase of 42% on finger pads. Now, compare that to the paper towel. Same studies found paper towels reduce bacterial count by 51% to 75% after washing. Paper towels aren't sterile either, but they're like using a clean towel straight from the wash, not one that's already been used around the bathroom. Why? Because paper towel provides mechanical friction. They physically wipe away residual bacteria and moisture. They don't blow anything around. Look, I'm not saying hand dryers are the villain here or the hand dryers are inherently bad. The problem is where the bacteria is coming from. So, where all this bacteria actually comes from. Source 1, bathroom air. Every time someone flushes a toilet without closing the lid, bacteria goes airborne. Many public toilets don't have lids, making the hand dryer's role as a bacteria vacuum even more inevitable. Fecal matter, E. coli, coliform bacteria. The hand dryer sucks in the contaminated air through its intake vent. If there is no filter or if the filter is clogged and dirty, all that bacteria gets blown straight onto your hands. 2. Inside the dryer unit. Water condensation collects inside these units. Dust accumulates, dead skin cells from people drying their hands. And these are the perfect conditions for bacterial biofilm to grow. Just sitting there, breathing for months or years, then getting blown out every time someone uses it. Source 3. Other people's poorly washed hands. I hate to say it, but not everyone washes their hands properly. Some people just rinse for 3 seconds and then they use the dryer with contaminated hands. The air, especially high-speed jet air, mechanically strips bacteria off their hands and disperse it everywhere. Then you use the same dryer. Now, here is where this becomes a real problem for facilities, because if you're responsible for cleaning these washrooms, this is actually working directly against you. This is what I call the hand dryer hygiene gap. It's not a cleaning failure. It's a coordination failure between cleaning, maintenance, and asset ownership. Think about this. Your cleaning team comes in. They disinfect everything, the toilets, the sinks, the door handles, the floors. They're using proper products, following the schedule. But throughout the day, every single time someone uses the hand dryer, bacteria is being blown back onto all those surfaces your team just disinfected. Studies have track this. Jet dryers disperse bacteria up to 3 meters across the bathroom. 3 meters. That's from the dryer to the opposite wall in most public toilets. Other studies found viral particles staying airborne for 15 minutes after someone uses a dryer. And here is what really got me. The highest concentration of dispersed viruses was found between 75 and 125 centimeters off the ground. That's face height for a small child. That's not a statistic, that's a real-world exposure zone. So, you've got continuous recontamination happening all day. the walls, the floor, the taps, everything your team just clean. It's like mopping a floor while someone walking behind you with muddy boots. And most facilities have absolutely no idea this is happening because nobody talks about it and nobody services these dryers. If you are watching this and you are responsible for facilities, make sure you pay attention to maintenance requests from your cleaning company or maintenance team about hand dryers. This matters. It's right there in front of you every day, but because the risk is invisible, it almost never makes it onto the official maintenance plan. If you want to understand this properly, I have linked our 5-level washroom contamination audit framework in the description below. Here is the question that changes everything. When was the last time that hand dryer was actually serviced? Not wiped on the outside, properly serviced. Filters checked, internal components checked and cleaned. For most hand dryers, probably never. If you manage facilities, this is one of those assets that quietly runs for years without anyone even opening it. They get installed, they run for 5-10 years, nobody opens them, nobody changes the filter. So let me show you what should actually be happening, and I have researched the actual manufacturer specifications for both types of dryers. For standard warm air dryers, daily wipe exterior and sensor with damp cloth and mild detergent. Keep that IR sensor clean. Weekly to monthly, clean air inlet grills with brush or vacuum, prevent dust building up. Monthly, empty all clean water tank or tray if your model has one. Quarterly to every 6 months, internal cleaning by a qualified technician. Power off, removed cover, vacuum dust from fan, motor and circuit. Every 6 months, motor brushes needs inspection and replacement if worn down to less than 5 mil. This is crucial for motor function. Again, every 6 months, HEPA filter replacement if equipped. For jet dryers, Dyson air blade style. Daily. This is strict. Wipe all exterior surfaces, especially blades and seals. Clean air inlets. This is a place that you will always get some dirt accumulation. Most importantly, empty and clean the water collector. This is where water scraped off hands. If you neglect this daily task, you're breeding bacteria. Regularly clean floor area around the unit. Water disperses up to 2 meters. As and when required. HEPA filter changes using manufacturer's kit, typically needed in high-use environment. Here is the difference. Jet dryers are easier on the technical maintenance side. They use brushless motors, so no motor brushes to replace. Less internal complexity. They are harder on the daily operational side. The water collector must be emptied and cleaned daily. The air jets needs to be cleaned daily as well. Miss this and you have got a bacterial breeding ground. Standard dryers are easier daily, but require more complex scheduled technical work by qualified personnel. Neither type is being maintained properly in most facilities, unfortunately. That is why this problem keeps repeating regardless of which technology you choose. So if you are buying new dryers or trying to work out if your current ones are adequate, here is what matters. HEPA filtration. Get dryers with HEPA filters. Proper HEPA filter removes 99.97% of particles down to 0.3 micrometers. That captures most bacteria. Many modern dryers like Dyson or Mitsubishi comes with HEPA as standard. But HEPA only works if you maintain it and actually replacing it on a schedule. Some people ask about UV lights. Can UV inside the dryer kill bacteria? UVC light can sterilize the internal components of the machine. That helps prevent biofilm growth inside the unit. UV is not effective for sanitizing your hands as you dry them. The exposure time is too short. That's just a few seconds. The UV light can't reach into the shadowed creases and folds of your hands, your knuckles, between your fingers. The light has to directly hit the bacteria to kill it. And prolonged direct UV exposure to skin and eyes is dangerous. It can cause burns and or eye damage. So UV inside the machine, fine if it helps keep internals clean. UV for your hands, that's just not how it works. Now, some high-end dryers combine multiple technologies together, and these are genuinely more effective. Multi-technology systems. There are dryers, particularly from manufacturers like Veltia and Citron Hygiene, that combine 3 technologies in one unit. HEPA H13 filtration, that's even better than the standard HEPA. It traps at least 99.97% percent of particles down to 0.3 microns. That includes dust, pollen, mold, bacteria, and virus aerosols. UVC light internally, not for your hands, but positioned to shine on the air as it passes through the chamber or onto the surface of the HEPA filter itself. UVC radiation deactivates the DNA and RNA of airborne microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, makes them unable to replicate. Ionization or titanium catalyst, this releases negative ions into the airflow. Those ions attach to positively charged airborne particles like bacteria and viruses, causes them to clump together because making them heavier and either fall out or get captured more easily by the filter. This is a multi-layered approach and it actually works. The HEPA filter physically removes contamination, the UVC light kills what gets through, and the ionization helps purify the ambient air around the dryer as well. Instead of just one defense, you've got three working together. These systems are marketed to high hygiene environments, healthcare facilities, food services, airports, places where bacterial contamination is taken seriously. Are they better than standard HEPA only dryers? Yes, because you've got the germicidal UVC step and the ionization working alongside the filtration. Here is what you need to understand. Even the most advanced dryer systems only work if two things happen. Firstly, people need to wash their hands properly in the first place. Because if someone is drying contaminated hands, the dryer's just dispersing that contamination regardless of how good the air filtration is. Secondly, the dryer needs to be maintained. HEPA H13 filters still need replacing. UVC bulbs have a lifespan and lose effectiveness over time. Ionizers need service. If you've got a 2000 pounds multi-technology dryer and you have never changed the filter or replaced the UV bulb, you just got an expensive standard dryer. So, yes, these advanced systems are the best option if you're committed to hand dryers. They provide the highest assurance that the air being blown onto hands is actively sterilized and free of contamination. These advanced systems are the best options if you're committed to hand dryers. They provide the highest assurance that the air being blown onto hands is filtered and treated before it leaves the unit. But they still require proper maintenance, and crucially, they don't change the underlying mechanics of how hands are dried. The science of that hasn't changed. So, are those expensive Dyson-style jet dryers actually more hygienic? The honest answer is it depends on what you are comparing them to. Manufacturers are right that HEPA filtration can make the air coming out of the unit cleaner than the ambient bathroom air. Their certification supports that. Multiple independent studies show that while the air itself is cleaner, the high velocity jet mechanically strips bacteria from the hands and surfaces far more aggressively than standard warm air dryer. That bacteria is then aerosolized, I think. It's called. It is dispersed across the washroom up to 3 meters and some of it remains airborne for up to 15 minutes. So, here is the honest conclusion. A well-maintained HEPA filtered jet dryer is likely better than an unfiltered standard warm air dryer. But when it comes to minimizing the microbial spread in real-world washrooms, comparative studies consistently show that paper towel remains the most effective option. Because paper towel physically remove water and bacteria through friction and they don't blow anything around the room. Now, I know paper towels create waste. They are not perfect environmentally, but from a pure hygienic perspective, they still win. What are the actual risks here? At a basic level, the risk is recontamination. Clean hands come into contact with air and surfaces that may not be clean. That part we have already established. But the biggest issue is what happens in the air. Those particles don't just land on hands. They stay suspended. They're inhaled by the next person and the person after that. For most healthy adults, that's unlikely to cause serious harm, but for immunocompromised people, patients in hospitals or care homes, young children, and people with respiratory conditions, it matters far more. Studies have identified opportunistic pathogens in hand dryer air. Not because dryers are evil, but because washrooms are biological environments. When these environments are combined with high-speed air and poor maintenance, exposure increases. That is the risk. Look, I am not trying to scare you away from public toilets. We clean public toilets, that's part of what we do. And most of them are fine. But hand dryers maintenance is one of the biggest hygiene gaps I see across facilities. Across nearly 100 facilities we manage, public and private, this comes up again and again. If you're responsible for a facility and you have installed hand dryers, you need to be maintaining them properly, following the schedules, replacing filters, cleaning internal components. You're not providing hygienic facilities. You're providing the appearance of them, and if you're just a regular person using public washrooms, maybe you make different choices now. Use paper towels when they are available. Avoid standing directly next to someone using a jet dryer. Notice whether equipment looks maintained or neglected. This bacteria doesn't care what you believe. It does what bacteria does. Spread. Multiply, and if we give it high speed dispersal mechanism in every bathroom, that's a choice we are making. The science is clear. The solution is straightforward. Service your dryers properly and regularly, or switch to paper towels. Those are the options. If you take one thing from this, it's this: hand hygiene doesn't end at the sink. It ends at the point where maintenance stops paying attention. I am Antoni from EcoDrift. If this changed how you think about washroom hygiene, hit subscribe. I am exposing more industry gaps and testing more assumptions every week. If you are managing facilities and this is making you rethink your washroom strategy, I've got consultation available, link in the description. Drop a comment. When was the last time your workplace serviced their hand dryers? Because I'm genuinely curious how widespread this problem is. Thanks for watching.